Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining this session. This is our eighth webinar in the series, and today we will be talking about no code in action, real life experiences and learnings from some eminent CEOs, CTOs who have joined us, in the panel today. It is with utmost pleasure I'd like to introduce each of them to you. The first we have is Mr. Mukesh Jain. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us in the session today. Mr. Mukesh is the CTO and Vice President and Global Head of Innovations with AI and ML at Capgemini. He comes with 27 plus years of experience. He's a technologist, he's an innovator, very passionate about AI and ML. He has spent close to 13 years with Microsoft in the US, at Redmond in the US. And besides being a technologist, he's also an author, he's a speaker, he's a startup evangelist, and an investor. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Mukesh. We look forward to gaining a lot of insights from you in the session today. Yeah. Our next guest for the day is a young and thriving Vishwajit Singh, who is the CTO and COO at Amrut Software. He is a serial entrepreneur, has been responsible to be starting many companies, very, very passionate about technology. And he wears multiple hats today, where he overlooks sales and deployment at Amrut Software. Has been very passionate about NLP, AI, ML, and the new technologies that are emerging in the market today. Welcome to the discussion, Vishwajit, and we look forward to gaining a lot of insight from you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi. Our next CTO is Mr. Thirumal Rao, Thiru, as we very fondly call him. He is the CTO at Sports Technologies. He brings with him a little over 3 decades of experience. He's a hardcore technologist. He's been an employee. He's been an entrepreneur himself. And today he's a co-founder and CTO at Sports. And he's primarily responsible for all product innovation at Sports Technologies. Welcome to the discussion, Thiru.
Thank you.
My name is Joseph. We have met before, and I head sales at Sports. And I would be moderating our discussion for the day today, where we will try and gain as much insights as possible from our eminent list of panelists and speakers. So, without much ado, I would quickly like to, first, jump into this question. We've been hearing so much about, code, no code, AI, ML, they were jargons at one point in time. Today, they are a reality. And everybody is gung-ho in jumping onto the bandwagon of what each of these can do for each of us from a technology perspective, and how the whole thing is actually changing the landscape. So what would be some key challenges that you would anticipate when somebody is trying to talk about no code as a technology or no code as a technology? What should be the readiness that somebody should have when you are onboarding something like a no-code technology or a low-code technology? So if you could give us some insights. I'll start with Vishwajit first. If you could give us some idea about what are some challenges that you see or you envisage when you bring no-code as a platform into an organization.
So definitely, so that's really a fair question, right? When we are actually evaluating any technology platform or looking to adopt any new technology or tools, right? So that's one of the things which we want to understand is in terms of the flexibility, right? So the platform has to have flexibility to meet different use cases which an enterprise will typically have, right? So I rate flexibility as one of the key things where you could basically look at how it's going to integrate with your other ecosystem things like that. And then the second part typically which we look at it is the vendor lock-in, right? So how easy it is, the portability of the data, right? So today, if I am basically using one platform, how easily I will be able to move out of it, or basically how would I want to basically move that data to some other low code platform going forward, right? So those are, I think, two key parameters which we'll look at. Another third thing which is basically is the scalability, right? So once we start using a platform, and if I'm an enterprise of say 25,000 employees, so how that platform which I'm going to use going to scale? I think these are three things which typically are stepping stone in terms of evaluating the platform and basically onboarding, and these are the areas where you would typically end up facing challenges.
Great points there. What would be your thoughts, Mukesh, around this? When somebody is trying to bring in no code as a technology, what are the typical challenges that you would see as a CTO, and how do you think you can circumvent them? You're on mute, sir. If you're speaking, I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So
Yeah.
one of the thing always challenges anytime we bring a new technology, because we are speaking as a CTO, right? But we also have to respect CIO, which is who will be blessing those technologies. So bringing that new technology always is a concern, because as the vendor lock-in was already mentioned, I'm not going to repeat that. But yes, interaction with the current set of tools, the data model, exposing the data model to this new no-code platform, right? Now the security risk and everything will always be there. But the important part is how easy it is to integrate. Second part will be, does it follow the company's, the look and feel and the access management part and all of those parts? Do we have to implement all of them all over again? So all those things will come into picture, except for the companies who have matured in the place wherein their data model, their data lake itself has taken care of those parts. So any API they call, they always go through the security or the role-based access part of it. If those are the things, maturity is there, then no code become easier. Having said that, there are still several elements in organization which is related to workflow, related to other things, where they may not be looking at a lot of this sensitive data to deal with. In those cases, it becomes easier for me to bring it in. And in my past experience, and even in my current experience, the way I have done no code platform implementation, try it out as a POC for a couple of places, couple of people who probably are non-tech, and it works. And only when it have when good use case, good story, then we integrate with the overall system for other people to use it. That's how I approach.
Fantastic. So we heard about flexibility, we heard about scalability, we heard about trying it before using it with a smaller audience or a smaller volume, and then expanding it to a larger business. So Thiru, as somebody who has worked so many years in the technology domain, I'm sure you've seen different layers of technology coming in. You yourself would have developed so many applications in your career, and then today heading the technology part of the no code platform, what are some of the typical challenges that you would have envisaged, and how do you think it helps CTOs, and what are some key solutions or challenges that somebody has to keep in mind?
Sure, Joseph. So first of all, I see no code and low code platforms as an opportunity, not a challenge, because it addresses the shortage of resources that companies are facing, especially people who can code. And then there is a greater demand for the business apps, and IT teams and the consulting, the core development consulting companies are unable to address the demand that is there in the market for the business apps. So first of all, I see it as an opportunity, and as a challenge, real challenge. People lose control when they adopt a no code or low code thing. When you write code from the scratch, obviously you can choose what kind of UI you want, what kind of layout, what technology stack, where you want to deploy, and all of that. So when you use a low code and no code platform, you have to give up some of that control, because you have to rely on the technology decisions that the platform vendor has taken for you. And then extensibility is the other thing that could be a challenge. integrating that with your existing solutions and other no-code platforms which offer similar capability. And then interoperability. If I want to move, let's say, my forms data to some other platform, let's say, one platform A to platform B. I don't want to take names as this is a generic no-code session. So as of today, it's not possible. But down the line, I hope there will be standards bodies which define formats for some of these standard things like forms, workflows, etc., so that interoperability becomes possible, and there is no vendor lock-in in the coming days.
So yeah, I think from what you said, we've addressed the challenge of interoperability, the challenge of vendor lock-in that which Udit was talking about. We spoke about flexibility and adaptability, and then one very key point that you just mentioned is in terms of resources that are available today in a developer community where the requirements are going up manifold. How do we ensure that it becomes much more easier for somebody who's functional to build applications with ease, somebody who does not necessarily need to know coding, right? But that also brings us to a very, very important question there. Since we have two experts on AI, how does generative AI play a role here? Right now we're talking about a functional person who understands his business and the challenges that he has in his business, and then he ideates how the application should be, and then he comes to somebody like Spoots, and he's managing to build an application with effort. But I think with generative AI, are we going one step forward there, where you're just keying in what you need, and then there is some engine in the backend that's creating the application for you? So where do we look at generative AI in this whole picture? Mukesh, I'd like to hear some points from you on how generative AI is going to play a role with low-code, no-code as a platform.
Yeah, so as we all know, right, generative AI has been around for quite some time. And first time I implemented generative AI was probably about 18 years back when I was at Microsoft, right? But of course, the ChatGPT and all had made it very, very easy and accessible for everybody. Now, the code generators, we call it, or the workflow automation, all of those part of it, they're there in bits and pieces, but not at the scale what we are talking about right now, right? Now, with generative AI coming in and all, become easier for anybody, even with basic knowledge, to be able to generate that code and get something working, right? But the same thing, the thing which I mentioned a few minutes back, right? Same thing will apply here also. Who is taking care of security? Who is taking care of the privacy, the role-based access, and all of those? The code can be written to get things done, which if it is no code, then I don't have to worry about it, right? But people will have that in the mind saying, hey, I can do something around that. So you might have seen that a lot of the organization, when they do some of the small project on artificial intelligence and data analytics and so on, they do it under one particular department and function. But after some time, it cannot scale, because as long as it is not becoming part of the CIO's portfolio, it becomes challenging to scale, not because of the political challenges, but more important about the consistency, data model, and so on. So I would still think that with generative AI and all, a lot of things are possible, but ultimately people have to align that with the organization strategy about how generative AI or no-code platform or anything to do with any custom application development outside the remit of the IT, how would that be implemented? So those have to be taken care of.
Very, very valid points. So while you might use generative AI to maybe initially, spin up an application, but then there are many layers behind it, right? In terms of scalability, in terms of how it tunes well into the organizational changes that come based on business needs. Then security is a bigger question, and then in the future, if you want to make any changes, how that is going to happen and who will do that, right? Great points, coming in from there. Vishwajit, what would be your thoughts in terms of generative AI coming in as a technology? Do you think no-code as a platform will adapt to it or make it as a part of its ecosystem tomorrow, so that no-code becomes much more accessible and easier for people to use?
Definitely, I think what OpenAI has done has definitely opened a lot of opportunities across different tools and technologies, right? So, and I don't see that low code or no code platforms are going to be left untouched, right? So, as I think Thiru mentioned, right, the lack of skilled people, right? So, definitely that's the area where I feel the generative AI is going to add a lot of value. Say for if you look at a use case, right, if you give a BRD or a business requirement document to an interpreter, it interprets it and generates the application, right? That could be basically the level which we can aim at, right? And bring it to a conversational interface, right, with voice. Then you don't have to even worry about somebody having to type, right? So these business people, typically if you go into manufacturing sector, or they are not very used to say using computers. So if you end up giving them some conversational interface with voice capability, I'm sure that's going to be the epitome where the generative AI could take low code platforms today, right? And I'm sure we will get there somewhere where we like we with GitHub Copilot, for example, we are already generating a lot of code, right? So I'm sure it's going to be basically bring in that marriage of flexibility of writing the code with the flexibility of ease of low code, and marry them together using, I think, this AI platforms is definitely, I think, the would be the next level.
Fantastic. Great points there. So, Thiru, as somebody who is responsible to be bringing a lot of product innovation, right? I am sure this is something that you would be asking yourself, what next do we bring in the product? And is generative AI something that, you think will become a part of the no-code platform? Why you answered that, if you could also throw some light in terms of the history of how no code as a platform evolved. Where do you think it is today, and what do you think will be the future of it? Will certain new concepts like generative AI become a part of it, or what else do you think could be a part of it?
So let me address the AI part first, and then we'll talk about history a bit, right?
Sure.
So the way I see it, based on the experience with some of these conversational AI technologies, as of now, AI is decent when it comes to answering questions, but AI is poor when it comes to asking questions or generating questions. So what I feel is, if somebody wants an app to be developed, I would probably send my one of my client success people to the customer and ask him to interview the customer and record the conversation and give that conversation audio or video to the AI agent and ask it to create a solution, right? It will come up with data capture templates, fields that are required, data type it can decide based on the conversation, and it can connect these activities and define a workflow and save it as a draft and ask the client success person to review it, tweak it, and then primarily release it as a beta or alpha version. So yeah, I think that will simplify the process of creating these things, which are like kind of manual in nature, right? So
your point is that it definitely will be a part of no-code technology, if not immediately in the distant future, definitely.
right. So yeah, I mean, everybody wants to delegate part of their job to computers. So
True.
so no coders also would automate their stuff, similar to how coders are delegating some of it to let's say Copilot. No coders, low coders, they'll also delegate these things. They'll give a transcript of, okay, this is the conversation that I had with the potential customer. Go build a solution, and then this guy will review it, and if he likes it or make some tweaks, then it becomes your version 1. or version 01, whatever, and then it goes through a review process, and primarily it decreases that feedback loop, and it will allow the company which is behind that no code platform or a consulting company to provide a solution faster. So going back to the history of no code, I'm sure most of you know tools like Microsoft Access, Front Page, right, which are like local or desktop based database management, reporting, form builder kind of tools. The only challenge was it's a single user, and they were made at the time where you don't have cloud technologies. Networking was not that prevalent. So the things that we see these days on the web offered as a SaaS platform are kind of extensions of Excel, Access, Front Page, right? So if you take Front Page to cloud, you might get a Squarespace or Webflow or some technology like that. If you take a Microsoft Access to cloud, you get another like data management platform or workflow kind of platform, right? So yeah, another interesting thing is coders generally use keyboard. They are informally known as keyboard based or keyboard heavy developers, whereas no coders and low coders, they use mouse a lot because they have to select certain things from the screen, drag things here and there, connect things, right? They are like can be informally called mouse heavy developers, where you pick, choose, move things around and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't want to take too much time, Joseph.
Great.
So
I mean, there are some,
history is long, so yeah, we'll
the
take it in
insights
bits and
are-
pieces.
Yeah, the insights are great. So Mukesh, as somebody who worked with Microsoft for over a decade, and I'm sure you would have overseen these products, right, when you were building teams, right? So from what Thiru has just said, he called out a few names like Excel, Access, and things like that, right? So did you envisage that this is something that would happen? This would pave way to the no-code generation today.
Yes, so definitely Microsoft went through the transformation in, I would say, early 2000, wherein we said, okay, fine, guys, this is our audience is not just technical people. You would notice, right? We used to have DOS, and then the Windows transformation which came in. In the DOS, you're putting a command and typing the command, and even today I use DOS, and my son and my daughter, they, oh, Mukesh, Dad, what are you doing, right? But yes, I think we have evolved over a period of time, and then from that to the point of mouse and drag and drop and things are there. Accessibility, right? I still use keyboard shortcuts. Very few people probably know all the keyboard shortcut anyways. So I think the transformation happened, but this is what the future is, right? How can we make it so simple that anybody can use it at the same time, allowing power user who are good at coding and all, be able to do that part. So for me, I love no code platform primarily not because I don't want to code. I want to code, by the way, but if my work is getting done in 10 minutes instead of 2 hours, I would love to doing that because I will be able to do more, right, in the same time. So I think the no code platform is, even though it started as a people for the functional people, non-tech people and all, but I think there's a good visibility and good thing for other people also to be able to use it to improve their productivity part of it and get some standardization done. Why should I focus on building something which somebody else have done it, just using it, which is what all the purpose of our no code would be, and anyways. But yes, over a period of time, Microsoft have realized this part, and a lot of drag and drop was evolved and customization was done. But one thing I would like to highlight, the behavioral pattern. I don't know how many of you know this part of Microsoft products. So I was part of the team who worked on these strategies and all, about based on the behavior of the way you use products, the menu item changes. If you notice, the ribbon what you see, it was done purely based on the machine learning data to be able to see what are the most common item people do. And the design which I created was 99% of the tasks you should be able to complete within 1 or maximum two steps, right? So even though we are not talking about low code, no code here, but the principles of no code is over here, such that you're improving productivity at the end of it. That's how Microsoft evolved over a period of time.
Fantastic, fantastic. Vishwajit, as somebody who has, again seen the transition of various product life cycles, having built products yourself, right? How would you, envisage this whole change? And do you also believe that the whole, foundation of low-code came from these products? What was your experience in that?
So definitely, as I think Mukesh rightly noted, I think you would want to get started quickly, but you still would want to have that flexibility, right? You want to if a developer would want that flexibility in terms of writing code, right? And when you basically marry these two things, and then you get basically a groundbreaking solution, right? In our experience, when we were developing an app on top of the low-code platform, so one of the key consideration was that will we be able to have that flexibility of doing more things, right? There are basically capabilities which you can do through UI, but are there hooks available, or are there capability of writing some backend custom logic or some things like that? I think when these two things come together, then it creates a valuable proposition, is what I feel, because we used a low code platform, open source low code platform, to develop a custom project management application, right? And we were able to do it in matter of weeks, not months, right? So developing a project management application in weeks, we couldn't have imagined, if I couldn't have imagined it 5 6 years back, right? But today it's possible because of the revolution of which low code has brought in. You are able to do so definitely, if you bring in that in terms of capability to have some hooks, custom capability of doing things, then definitely a low code actually is a value proposition which not many organizations will be able to refuse.
Great. So that was actually my next question also. What was your experience of having built something around the low code, no code? If you did, what were some benefits that you saw? So as I interact with a lot of customers today, see, one thing that I noticed is that there was a time when there were core applications that customers had, right? What is my core business? And then there I bring a little bit of automation by investing in applications. And then there are a lot of activities that otherwise happen where all this information goes into the core application, right? Now that was completely manual. I think with the emergence of low code, no code as a technology, it has become one. You really don't need to take a developer's time to actually build that whole thing out. Somebody who's functional will be able to do this, provided it is absolutely DIY. Two is that merely because of the volume and the way the whole product is designed, by being on SaaS, it has become much more affordable as well, right? So today we talk to customers where we're talking a per user license of let's say about $10, right, per user per month, which does not really pinch a customer who was otherwise paying upwards of $1,000-$2,000 per user, right? So if you have the ability to create those applications and automate those processes, which enable you to become much more faster in the market, why not? A lot of customers today I see are willing to bring automation to that level as well, right? To a ground zero level as well, right? So very recently I was talking to a agri customer, and he wanted to basically capture data in terms of when they actually collect seeds from farmers, right? Right from that stage, am I able to capture that into a platform or into an application, and then automate that whole process so that I can do away with the whole manual activity that I'm doing, because I might write it somewhere and then I might forget it. With the usage of smartphones being much more higher as compared to earlier, I think the adoption is really going up. So in my experience, irrespective of the industry, today customers are willing to look at a no-code platform because it helps them to quickly spin up an app, make changes, and then the adaptability is much more higher. So you just spoke about how you managed to build a low-code platform for some internal application, which you were able to quickly build that in a couple of weeks. So what was your experience there, Mukesh? What was your first brush with no code, and then was it really just at a ground zero level, or do you think this can also scale to larger core applications as well?
So I think it will be purely based on the persona. And so, for example, people like me who's even today writing code would have different experience compared to people who are purely functional, and people who are probably have used in the past some other, right? So that baggage, I would call it, or that past experience would sometimes hinder your experience with no code. My experience was not very good in the beginning, primarily because I knew coding and I was like, hey, wait a minute, I need to do something, or something is available. So on a good positive side, it was a not so good experience. But once I understood that, hey, if I'm doing no code, don't have to use my engineering mind, I have to use something different, and then approach it there. But the more I talk about it, right? So for example, asking the functional guy who have been there for 20 years, 15 years, and they know that what kind of details engineers require, you need to condense it now and focus on the flow, focus on the workflow, focus on those parts. So that change, that mindset change is what is required, because no code definitely is solving those part, and then that is something which is not very common. It doesn't come naturally for a lot of people. That's the first part of it. Second part of it is, yes, it can be done for more conventional application also. But one thing we have to also understand, the UX, user experience part. The no code part actually can make a user experience even better. Because imagine if I ask somebody, like if I am asking a functional person, hey, create something like this, the person will do drag and drop 1, 2, 3, 4. The person will not going to make 10-step process. The person will going to make minimum, right? So that is the beauty about it, that user experience will become even better compared to an engineer who is assigned to do this part. They say, okay, let me have a different skin for this, let me have a different skin for that. The steps are becoming much longer. So I think this is how I have seen it helping us, not just for the change in mindset for people who are doing this, and now they can function more on functionality and even improve user experience implicitly without being explicit about it.
Fantastic. So Thiru, in your experience, I mean, you would have built so many applications for so many customers, right? Using with effort today as a product. So were there some real life case studies where it was an aha moment for you too, where you said, wow, they could probably use this to build an application for this kind of use case as well, right? So was there any experience that you would like to share? There could be many, but if you have to pick one.
Yeah. So yeah, what I want to highlight is we have one application in the App Store, right? I mean, one in the Android App Store, one in the iOS App Store. Primarily 2 apps, if you count them as like 2 separate platforms. But it's being used by 100 different companies. The only thing that changes is the configuration or the metadata or the workflow and stuff like that, right? And the power of this platform, one use case, one thing that I wanted to highlight was during demonetization, one of the finance services company, NBFCs, was using our product. We had to remove certain denominations, add certain denominations. And since this is a configurable platform where everything is driven through data and not through code, right? So we were able to roll this out, demonetization enabled, new loan collection kind of thing. We were able to change that in a couple of days. One day to change, then do UAT, and the other day they were live, right? So primarily, I mean, we keep calling this as the power of now. If you get a thought and you can implement it and start using it the very next moment, right? you can make magic happen, right, in your
True.
workspace. So yeah, I don't have any aha moments as such, but this is one thing that I want to share.
Okay. Yeah. I had many because I'm not a tech guy. So as a sales guy, when I look at some new stuff, I'm like, wow, okay, you can have an application for this too, right? Now, when we're talking about so much of flexibility, right? I'm sure it comes with its own set of challenges. You are suddenly bringing somebody who is non-technical, who understands this functionally, and then they want to build something. Sometimes it might not be too very rational too, right? So what do you think, in the role of a CTO, right? What do you think are some steps that you will have to take in terms of identifying the best practices when somebody is trying to build an application via the no-code platform? Vishwajit, if you could share us some insights there, right? Because I'm sure when you have the flexibility to do a lot of stuff, I want to go to the moon and come back with it, but that may not be too very practical, right? So, I'm sure, there has to be an outline, there has to be a guideline in terms of what are the right steps that we need to take in terms of ensuring that we maintain sanity too here.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I think the first thing, like everything, you have to first define the clear objectives, right? What you want to achieve. So because unless you define what you want to achieve, you will go nowhere, right? So you can, as you said, right, you can probably plan to go to the moon, and there's no way you could possibly land on moon, right? So having that clear objectives are definitely, I think, one of the key things which typically any initiative you should focus. And I don't think no code is any, or low code is any expectation there, right? And as I think we initially also discussed, choose the basically right platform, right? So basically the platform which you are choosing should be easy enough for those people to use, right? So if you take a platform which has basically a very steep learning curve, then it basically defeats the whole purpose of it, right? Because you want to achieve something, we want to give people the ability to do something, and you will end up basically teaching them for say 3 months to learn the platform itself, then it's not going to take you anywhere, right? So that's definitely the second point which I said. Third point would be as start small. So that's, I think, Mukesh also mentioned. So starting small definitely helps, because if you start small, you fail small. So if you start big, you will fail big, right? And nobody wants to nobody wants to fail big, right? We all want to. There is so much talk about agile and all those things. We want to basically do things quickly, understand it, and then maybe retrospect that and improve from there. And then definitely, I think the starting small is the key, that you take some level of functionality, and then you start delivering that value. And think of the security from the day one, because you are going to deal with user data. So when you are dealing with user data, the point of security cannot be highlighted enough, right? So because if first the platform has to ensure that you should have those all compliances in place from the platform itself, and then what you are doing should be compliant with the law of the land, right? What you are trying to do, what kind of data you are trying to put into SaaS platform, right? So that's where you have to basically bring in those processes in terms of talking about, now India has its own data protection bill, right? And then there are compliant in regulated industries where you have basically different regulation of data residency and things like that. I think these are definitely broader areas from my perspective to basically have a processes around, and have some sort of a checklist given to people that, okay, this is what you can possibly look at doing it. And the most important is not what you can do. The important part is what you should not do and what you can't do, right? So if you basically emphasize, I think that definitely that's a process which would basically encourage people, also with tone them down on their expectations as well.
So some great points there, Vishwajit. So the first thing is, have your objective defined very clearly, and like Mukesh did mention earlier, start small, and then grow big. Have a clear idea of what are your security policies in the back end, and then limit yourself to what you need to do, and then It's not just about what you can do, and be focused about what you should not be doing ideally, right? So some great points there. So Mukesh, would you like to add to that, right? In terms of what should be a framework? What should somebody look at when somebody is building an application around with a no-code platform?
Yeah. So some of the things which we normally have heard about, in Agile, which we call it fail fast and all. I don't use the word fail fast because the word fail is definitely is not good. And then anybody who don't like to be associated with the word fail, right? So what I always encourage people to do is start small and then play it around quickly. One of the things which I've found over a period of time, like some of the best practices is getting the clear objective, involving the stakeholder, right? A lot of time we just think, oh, this is good for our employees, this is good for our non-tech functional people, and then we just build it. No, that's not the right way. The kind of investment we would do for building something, and after 3 months, even if you do Agile, after 3 months, we'll show something to people and they will, oh, that's not what we wanted. Compared to here with no code, we can do it much faster. Actual customizing can happen at some point, right? But choosing the right platform, what can we do, focus on the user interface, and the user interface would probably become a lot more important here. And of course, the whole part about documentation, training, how it will happen, and then iterative, right? Solving and we used to have this practice in Microsoft as the product management, right? So each of these 5 elements will have, and each of them will have multiple priorities. So take one from each, finish it, then one the second priority. So slowly, the way you prioritize on no code will be even better, because if you try to do everything no code day one, the project itself will become 3 months project, which is not good. You should be able to do it much faster. Take a one use case, small use case, get things working, make sure it's working, and then add features on top of it. And then in some cases, you might have to just write some custom code, which also could be an option. Normally, all the no-code platform provides you that option. You can add that particular module on top of what you are doing right now, and it will just work for you. That could be an approach we normally take. That's the best practices I would say I've seen works for most of the use cases.
Fantastic. So you're saying, take small steps, right? And then, expand on that rather than, trying to do the whole thing, at once, right? Which could unnecessarily yield in, you spending a lot of time, building that particular application. Great points there, Mukesh. So Thiru, in your experience, what do you think, somebody should look at when somebody's trying to build a no-code platform? Are there any guidelines that you think, besides what we just discussed? I mean, these are some great points that have come, very important points too. But besides these, do you think, are there anything else that you would like to throw some light on?
Yeah. So I think the no code and low code platforms remove the unseen divide that exists between IT and business people, right? So there is always some kind of friction between these things. So most of the time, low code platform is used by the business people. Since one of our guys is doing the configuration or design, the collaboration with the other stakeholders is high when you compare it with a regular IT project where some IT people come, take the requirements, go, show up after 3 months, 6 months, whatever, right? So I think since these platforms remove the divide between IT and business, to be successful in the execution of a no code or low code project, I think we should involve all the stakeholders from the beginning. And rather than building a highly sophisticated final version on day one, we should focus on building an MVP, minimum viable product. Show it, get the feedback, and launch the app using a gradual rollout rather than like pushing the app to all 10,000 plus users you have. Start with 10, next week roll it out to 100, and then 1,000, like that. So gradual rollout is something that we often miss when people adopt the no code platforms. So people who configure get too excited and they want that to go to everyone, right? So if you are disciplined in doing a gradual rollout and starting small, and then as Mukesh was mentioning, you don't fail, you either win or you learn, right? You
Correct.
take the lessons and apply it in the next project.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, just to add to what you just said, right? This is something that we follow as a philosophy at Effort, right? Even if I have a customer who comes and tells me that, you know what, I have 1,000 users, what can we do? We always tell them, you please start small and grow big, right? And this is after we have done a bunch of demos and after we have done POCs. We don't let a customer close with us until they've done a POC with us. It's like a rule that we have. You know, while a customer might come back and say, look, I am from a technology background, I understand what you're telling me. We still want them to experience that, right? We still want them to have a bunch of users using the product before they come back and sign up with us. And because we have followed that philosophy for the last 10 years, the level of customer churn that we have has been at the minimal, right? That I can say. So what it just resonates, whatever you, the three of you just been, telling. I think they're absolutely, perfect points, right? So anybody who is today building a no-code platform should definitely adapt to these points, right? Let us not push the customer saying that, okay, bring everything onto the platform, right? You please take a look at it, test it in your environment, and then start small and then grow big. So that gives them an area of comfort as well. So great points. Thank you so much for those.
Yeah, one point that I want to highlight. Right,
Please.
start creating a checklist for everything that you do,
Mhm.
right, and use that in the execution, right? So I mean, we have a very low view of these checklists, but they can do magic.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
they trigger lots of questions, and the more questions that you have, more clarity you will get. So use some low-code platform to maintain your checklist and run through the checklist, tick them off, right, when you do it. Right. In other words, while you build a no-code solution, use another low-code solution or the same solution, create an app to track your checklist and use that to drive your decision making. That way you don't make the same mistakes multiple times.
Again, yes, agree. So one very important question that a lot of customers ask me, when I'm trying to sell the solution is about storage and security, right? And because we are looking at a no-code platform, because this most of these are on SaaS models, right? Security is a very, very imperative question. And we discussed this in brief, in some of the points that we spoke about when we spoke about, some of the best practices, right? We said that security is definitely a key concept. So I really wanted to spend a little more time around that, right? So from a security perspective, what does a CTO at a customer end should be aware of? And what are some things that he should really look for when he's talking to a vendor who's helping him with a no-code platform? If you could give some insights, Mukesh.
It's some of the thing which we always do when as soon as we say involve the stakeholders. One of the key stakeholder here is the CIO or the CISO, and getting this understanding about what all things are there. Because platform like this, and then especially when things are going outside the control, outside the environment, right? There'll always be a concern around for people. But it's not like we have started the SaaS journey about 20 years back now. Okay, and then our past and everything, right? So people are aware of that part of it, and then people know how to get things done with those. So now I would say the part is just getting those people involved, making sure that the things are taken care of. That security includes data privacy and everything. I was part of the NITI Aayog committee who drafted the data protection bill, and some of the recommendations are already implemented there. I'm happy to see that in live and now in action. But I think each of us as CTO, right, being aware of those parts is important, because by mistake also, for example, I found somebody who's using generative AI, even though the corporate policy does not allow them to use it, right? So those mistakes should not happen. So that's the only point, right? So if CTO is not fully aware of those parts, making sure the CISO or somebody is involved who will actually guide them about what are the principles and policies are before they implement anything on no code.
Great points there. What would be your thoughts, Vishwajit? What from a security perspective, what is something that any customer who's trying to, bring themselves to a no-code platform, what are something that they should really be, watchful about? Or what should be those checklists that, they have to tick out, right, when they look at security as a perspective?
So definitely, I think one important part is the encryption of the data, right? So today we have technology where the data is also encrypted at rest, right? So obviously, when it's in transfer, majority of the platforms today basically have data encryption, right? But now it becomes imperative for many organizations, depending on what kind of industry they are, right? Having data encryption at the rest is becoming norm for SaaS vendors as well, right? So whoever is here storing my data should be basically have that encryption at rest, right? And the second point is the capability of multi-factor authentication. So that's also today becomes no-brainer. So it's like it's any enterprise who is trying to adopt any platform, MFA is basically a must, which people should typically look at it, right? And along with role-based access control, because you are going to put some data which basically may be confidential in nature for so you want to give access to different roles and hierarchies, right? Say for example, if you're trying to build a dashboard, so every stakeholder should be able to have view only for their function, right? They shouldn't be able to see the data across functions. So the role based access definitely becomes very critical. And security around APIs, right? Here, if you are basically having a low code platform, you would typically be integrating it with some of your platforms, right? That goes without saying. So having secure APIs is, I think, one of the areas which definitely should be looked upon anybody who is basically evaluating the platform, right? And then standard compliance things, like there are industries which are GDPR, you need to be GDPR compliance, you have to have HIPAA compliance and things like that, right? So security has to be definitely at the heart of it, because you guys build the platform, right? You know how seriously you have to take security, because at the end of it, you are going to deal with sensitive data of the customer as well, right? So because it may be non-sensitive in some cases, but in many cases it will be sensitive. So security definitely has to be have a greater compliance. Yeah, it's I think Mukesh also mentioned having CISO involved earlier in the conversation, or have your information security team involved when you are evaluating, definitely is going to basically take that solution in better shape, and also have that ability of greater runway going forward.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Those are some, great points that both of you have shared. Now, as a product, effort as a product is industry agnostic, right? And the way our business is run is that we are more, defined, or we're more driven by the use case that a customer brings to us. So, if you actually look at our product portfolio or a customer portfolio, we have customers from close to 20 different industry verticals, right? And security requirements for each of this could be different, like you rightly said, Vishwajit. This could be critical data, it could be non-critical data, right? Somebody might be using our platform just to capture some information at a field level. May not the criticality may not be so very high, but then we also have some NBFC customers who are capturing customer information, which could be extremely critical. So since you have seen so many scenarios, especially because we have customers from diverse industry verticals, what are some of those key things that you have observed that customers look for, especially from a security perspective? And if you can also touch upon what efforts is Pools making to ensure that customer data is secure once they are on the effort platform.
Yeah, so basically okay, low code and no code platforms have an edge when it comes to security, because you are starting at a slightly higher level. If somebody is doing everything from scratch, you have to be even more careful, and you have to be even more vigilant about what kind of security risks it might have. But since you start at a slightly higher level and build on top of it, you need not be too concerned there when it comes to building something on a low code platform. And then the other thing is, most of these no code vendors, including us, we take our product through a vulnerability assessment on a periodic basis, and whatever they report, we address them very quickly and release the updates. And since it's a cloud-based and SaaS offering, you automatically get benefited from those security fixes that we do on a periodic basis. So primarily, what should customers look at, or what kind of checklist they should have when they approach a no-code vendor? Obviously, they should look at all these certifications, audits. Do they have a proper processes for handling customer data, where it's ISO certification? When was their last vulnerability assessment done? Is it like in the last 3 months, or did it expire long time ago, right? So validity of those assessment, validity of those certifications that they have. And then we also spoke about the scalability aspect of it. So security obviously is a key thing. Scalability, interoperability, extensibility, and last but not the least, it should be affordable to play with and get started.
Got that. Got that. Great. Thank you so much. I mean, we are actually running short on time because this is a great discussion and there are some great points, coming in. I'd like to just pause. We have a bunch of questions that have come. Maybe we can, quickly pick one. There is a question. As a business owner, I understand the critical importance of data security. Could you provide insights into how no-code solutions are designed to maintain data security, and what steps can CTOs take to ensure that sensitive information is protected when utilizing these solutions? I think Thiru has partially or mostly addressed that question, right? When he said that, when you're starting at a higher level, rather than driving it from scratch, right? There are certain measures that are taken, and then the other certifications that you primarily do in terms of ensuring that data is pretty secure. If there are any other points that you would want to add, I'd be happy to take that as well. Okay, cool. Whether no code or low code, as a business owner, which one is more preferable and suitable? What are the key factors one should keep in mind in choosing a no code or a low code platform? Yeah, between the three of you, if any one of you would like to answer that question.
Yeah, let me take this. Okay, so primarily it depends on availability of the resources. If your people are familiar with, like, if they are pro coders, obviously you should start with a framework and build things using a framework. And if the people you have are mostly business users with like no computer science or engineering or IT background, obviously you should go for a no code platform. Or if they have come from a web background and if they have some scripting skills, probably you should graduate towards low code. The way I see it is, it's a continuum. There's like pro code, low code, no code. You start somewhere and you try to move in either direction, right? So pick something that you are familiar with and your people are familiar with. So there's no strict rule which says you have to do or pick this or that. So
Okay.
Go with the familiarity.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much, Vishwajit. Thank you so much, Mukesh. Thank you, Thiru. Those were great points, great insights that you have given us. I hope our audience also has benefited from this. I really look forward to be connected with you to learn further. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks Mukesh and Vishnujit for sharing your thoughts.
Yep.
Thanks Joseph for organizing this.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure is mine.
Thanks everyone
Thank
for
you.
attending. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.